And I want to say hi. My name is Nick. 5 years ago, I started a group called Katrina Help Austin. We had just gotten back from protesting the war in Iraq in Crawford, Texas, against George Bush. We were kind of camped out with Cindy Sheehan and all the anti-war protesters. But we got back to Austin and realized that Hurricane Katrina was hitting New Orleans, and I was watching it on CNN the night that the hurricane hit, and I saw the levees break, and I saw the water come in, and it was just, I guess I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know, I just saw like the devastation hit New Orleans. And because we were so close, Austin, Texas is not that far away from New Orleans. We're one state away. I figured, like, okay, since we're in Texas, we have to do something. So I decided to start to mobilize that evening of the hurricane. When I saw the levees break and the water hit the Ninth Ward, I figured we needed to do something. So I started calling up public access TV producers at our local public access TV station here in Austin, Texas. And I called everyone I knew from Craigslist. And I said, we're going to do this. And then all of a sudden I put posts up on Craigslist. I had gotten a phone call from a lady that said she had 59 people at her house in Round Rock, that her son had brought back all these people and that they weren't going to be able to go home, and then they all needed a place to stay. So that night I stayed up and we went there the next morning, got the 59 people. I did phone calls the evening before, got a hold of a summer camp down in New Braunfels, Texas, called Slumber Falls Camp, and we took those people down there to that camp. And then I came back to Austin, and my phone just started ringing off the hook because the TV stations and the newspapers had all, saw that we were doing something. And what our original plan was to match people with housing. People had an extra bedroom in their house or apartment. We asked them if they could take in a couple or take in people that were Katrina evacuees and help them get jobs, give them a place to stay till their FEMA money came through. It was mass craziness. So we started a group and called it Katrina Help Boston. And what Katrina Help Boston was we opened up our telephone line. We matched housing with people who were donating housing and people that needed housing. There had already been a whole group of people in Austin already realizing they couldn't go back to New Orleans and they needed housing. The second part of our operation was people started showing up at our office with donations. So as you can see from the pictures, this is the front yard of my apartment complex, which I have been evicted from since that happened. But all my neighbors were involved in helping with, taking the donations in. My backyard happened to be the backyard of the San Jose Catholic Church, which is at the end of South 3rd Street off of Old Torf in Austin. That's Rose Duncan right there, and she coordinated all of the people. There were like the liaison people. They would go to the convention center, find out who needed places to live, who needed clothes. I mean, people literally showed up on buses from the Superdome. They had nothing. They had like one little bag with nothing in it, and we needed to get people clothes. So people showed up from the Austin Convention Center, and as you can see, all the different pictures of clothes and items that were donated. They could take anything that they wanted, and the city of Austin helped with housing. We had a lot of volunteers. This is a family here that was from New Orleans, and they had their kids, and we hooked them up with housing from all the volunteers who volunteered, places to stay. All those vehicles there are all the vehicles that actress Sandra Bullock rented and donated to us, so we had transportation to go back and forth. And we had the Air Force unit from Fort Hood. Even though we know it's an Army base, they have an Air Force unit there. They showed up and brought all these tents. We had army tents everywhere. It was like MASH in Woodstock, New York, showing up in my backyard and front yard. A lot of these pictures are taken, the day before people showed up at the convention center, and we took pictures when we didn't have clients there because we didn't want to embarrass anybody, by photographing them after they had been through the hurricane in New Orleans. So we did have a few pictures of a few people, but they just happened to randomly just show up. We had a lot of good people. We had Rose Duncan, we had Myron. Rose did our internet and our website. Myron is a real estate agent, and she just showed up and did so much work. Noah Lonnie, who I knew from the HEB store, which is a grocery store, she showed up with her family and kids, and they were with us nonstop. Margaret, her husband worked for the city of Austin. Margaret showed up and she was just at the desk. There's so many people. There were over 300 volunteers from the University of Texas, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, Craigslist, hundreds of volunteers from Craigslist. The Bicycle Sports Shop in Austin donated bicycles so people had transportation. So they could ride their bike from the convention center to wherever, or when they were starting to get, people were desperate for everything. They needed clothes, they needed food, they needed furniture they were given apartments by the city of Austin temporarily until their FEMA money came through, and people just needed everything. So it turned into we were like the super Walmart of donations here. And I can never imagine that this was even going to be as big as it turned out to be. I started it with me, one person. The second day I had 2 people, 3 people. The third day I had 40 or 50 people. On the fourth day of doing Katrina Help Austin, I had over 100 volunteers, and by the end of the whole project, over 300 people were helping on a daily basis, doing various different things, sorting donations, putting up tents, tables, chairs, all kinds of jobs. It was just nonstop work. This was done out of my 2-bedroom apartment on the south side of Austin, Texas. That's my front door to the apartment there. That's my backyard where the truck is. That's me on day number 1, day number 2. All of a sudden, we put tents up everywhere. Donations were showing up. People drove in my front yard, as you can see. They were dropping off items in the front yard, and they were getting sorted in the front yard and taken to the backyard. Sorted into shoes in one area, clothes in one other area, women's clothes in one area, pillows and blankets in another area, personal items, food items would go into the truck. That was my dining room and my kitchen that was turned into operations inside because we had air conditioning. It was 102 degrees outside. Katrina Help Austin went on for 30 days. We operated out of my house. My house turned into Katrina Help Austin. It was like Woodstock, New York is all I can explain. And everyone in Austin started showing up. People showed up with donations, for the Katrina evacuees. People showed up, they called. We were getting close to 800 to 1,000 phone calls a day of people donating housing for victims. People were donating bicycles. People were just wanted to help. A lot of people just showed up and just wanted to help. And we even had, it was like a little MASH camp. I guess that's the best way to explain it. Sort of if you imagine watching MASH on TV, that is what my whole apartment complex turned into, as I'm showing you the backyard there, and the army tents that came from the Air Force unit at Fort Hood, and I can't thank them enough. We took all these donations and we boxed everything up with the Boy Scouts, and we also had the Girl Scouts, and we had volunteers from Craigslist there. We loaded up trucks, big gigantic tractor trailer trucks, went to Hammond, Louisiana, to a FEMA warehouse where the majority of these items went to. We also donated some of the items back to our local homeless shelter because the convention center had taken all their blankets and all their clothes, and the homeless people in Austin needed clothes as well. We had just so much left over. By the end of the 30 days, we had donated maybe 5 or 10 truckloads of clothes to the Salvation Army and to everything that was left over. We just donated to local organizations here in Austin, so that they could have them to give away, or we didn't want to throw anything away. Everything was used. So basically, day one, things built up. Tents showed up, chairs showed up, tables showed up. As you can imagine, I'm making this little mini movie here. There's no script, there's no editing. This is just like as we go. I'm just talking about what was happening. Noelani there was just an awesome help. She was just there every day for me. You know, being diabetic and being in 102-degree weather every day was really, really rough on me. There was times I almost blacked out, but I just kept going. You know, I took a little rest, drank a little bit of juice, and had a little bit of food, and then I was ready to go. And the hundreds of volunteers were just, there for me. I could not have done this by myself. But this just goes to prove that, it takes a little bit of guts to, do something like this. And I have the support of so many people, especially the church next door. I can't thank the church next door enough, which is San Jose Catholic Church. They were like lifesavers. People showed up. We had people coming in to pick up the families. We had people that needed housing. They showed up at our place. We called our volunteers up that had housing. They would come down to my apartment, pick up their families, take them home. The promise was to help them for at least 2 months until they could get on their feet or get back to their normal life, which a lot of people ended up in staying here in Austin, and a lot of people ended up in San Antonio. We had transportation to drive them to wherever they needed to go. It was really hard doing this project. I never would have imagined that it would have ever happened, because I just did it all on a whim. There was it's hard to tell the story and crunch it all up in 10 minutes when the thing went on for 30 days. There was just 20 hours of work every single day. I slept 3 and 4 hours a night. Just, going to bed at 1 or 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, waking up at 7 or 8 in the morning, and just going for another full day of getting items out to people, making sure things were coming, making sure people had housing, making sure that people had food. I gave away my own personal clothes because I wear super large t-shirts and stuff. I think I ended up with 2 pairs of pants and 3 shirts after it was all over. Getting back to, we helped so many people, and I just hope that we made a difference in people's lives. We ended up putting close to 1,000 people into volunteer housing, which was through churches and people that called up and said that they had a place to stay. We ended up helping 500 or 600 people get into City of Austin housing by giving them clothes and furniture and plates and bicycles and those kind of items that they needed to just survive, until FEMA finally got their act together 3 weeks after this all happened. I don't think people got their FEMA money until 3 or 4 weeks after the whole hurricane had happened. But Houston was the hardest hit with the most people. Austin, the governor, in fact, Rick Perry, told them that we're only going to take 5,000 people. So, the other people were shuttled to other cities, such as Dallas and wherever they could go in the country. We got baby items, a lot of women's clothes, a lot of blankets, a lot of pillows, a lot of things that people needed. And I just hope that the whole project was beneficial and it helped everyone. My name's Nick Papatonis. You can email me at nickm78704@aol.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at CNNAustinTX on Twitter, and that's my story. And I want to thank